Memory, all alone in the moonlight. I can smile at the old days. Life was beautiful then.
1,085 books, 9,607 minutes, 199 debates, disagreements, arguments, probably more than that, and countless shocking revelations later, we have arrived at our 200th episode of Keep It Fictional podcast from the Port Moody Public Library. First of all, thank you to all the listeners for the time that you have spent with us. We wouldn't be here without you. And we started this podcast in 2020, 4 years ago. It was during the pandemic. And we wanted to have a way to still connect with our patrons, to be able to still talk books with all of you. Ever since then, every Friday morning, we do our recording. And this is my favorite hour of my work week. Despite being really bad at this and get stressed about it every single week, this is the best time. And I cannot think of anyone else in the world that I would rather spend this special hour with than the 6 people that are here today. And yes, listeners, I did say 6, because in addition to the people that you expect to hear from today, we have 3 very, very special book friends who are able to join us again for this reunion. And it is my honor today to introduce each of them, but I'm going to keep you in suspense for a little bit. I'm just going to start with the usual suspects first. The first book friend is the newest member to our Keep It Fictional podcast. So not quite 200 yet. So happy 27th episode to you, Emma. But even though you're the newest, I feel like our listeners got to know you really well already because you're not afraid of telling them what you like. We know that you are a big giant fan of sports fictions and sports manga. I think the first thing I got to know you is like you're showing me your Haikyuu tattoo. And then you also are the go-to person here to recommend some sapphic or queer relationship stories. That is sort of your thing. And of course, you also told us that you love, like you can enjoy the cozy, but you also like a little bit of doom and gloom, as you said. Personally, super appreciate you because 50% of the time you're my ally on this show for most of the things. So thank you for being here. I don't know if you expected, Emma, when you sign up for this job to have like weekly homework, that much weekly homework, but there's no homework this week. So I'm dying to know what you have been reading or what you're reading. So for you to share that. And today, because it's our 200th episode, the little restriction on everybody's book talk is that it has to be exactly 200 words, just in case you don't think this is homework enough. So Emma, what did you read without any assignments?
So this isn't the book that I read this week, because the book I've been reading this week is one that I'm talking about the podcast in a couple of weeks. So I don't want to spoil that one. But this is the book that I was reading a couple of weeks ago that I found really interesting. So doing this little assignment felt very much like homework. I haven't had to use a word counter in a really long time, but my little blurb, exactly 200 words. In Scotland, in the year 1567, a pregnant 24-year-old Mary Queen of Scots is being transported to the isolated Lochleven Castle, located on a small island in the middle of a loch. Her only companions are her 2 maidservants, Cuckoo, a romantic and quick-tempered French woman, and Jane, a quiet and observant Scot. The 3 women are to remain in captivity in Lochleven, where their captors, a group of Protestant Scottish noblemen, want nothing more than for Mary to be dead. The next few months are claustrophobic. The 3 captive women are under the constant supervision of the laird of the castle and his wife, Agnes, who spies on Mary under the guise of trying to be her friend. Mary is frequently harassed by Margaret Erskine, the laird's mother, and her father, King James V's former mistress. The rebel Scottish noblemen force Mary to sign abdication papers to relinquish her throne to her son, James VI, who they also have in captivity. All seems lost for the Scottish queen until her childhood friend and close confidant, Lady Sutton, arrives, and the 4 women begin planning their escape from Lochleven. Mary is calculating, charming, and unbowed in this atmospheric contemporary reimagining. So the book title is called The Tower by Flora Carr, obviously about Mary, Queen of Scots. I won't add more because that goes over the word count.
Thank you, Emma. That's not quite what I was expecting. So I guess there's like other side of Emma that we still have to discover.
I'm a big Barry Queen of Scots fan, in case you did not know already. And this book does have some sapphic relationships in it, so it's still quite an Emma book.
Looking forward to maybe hearing more about that at some point on the podcast. Our next book friend is an original member of the Keep It Fictional team. I think you and I are the only people that have been here for like all of it, Miss Corene. You're so devoted to this show that you have dedicated your Thursday, every single Thursday, to the podcast. And I'm not sure if there's any one of us here who could handle the stress of not knowing what book we're going to be talking about 12 hours later during the recording. So clearly you thrive on that, I don't know, thrill of not knowing what to read, I guess. And I'm still always amazed that with like no sleep, you're able to talk about the books coherently. I don't know if any one of us could do that. Miss Corene, of course, most famous for, I mean, we all have strong feelings here, but I feel like Miss Corene, strong feelings are like all on her face all the time. I feel like many of us can keep it in, whereas you look at Corene, you know exactly what she's thinking about whatever you're talking about. So, Miss Corene, I'm dying to know what you did last night because you didn't have to read. So, what did you do? And tell us about a book that you have read.
What did I do last night? Well, I'll tell you what I didn't do. I didn't pack for the trip that I'm going on tonight. But I did pick a book, and I wanted to choose something that was very much up my wheelhouse. I was very thankful in that a hold came in yesterday just as I was leaving work. And so that pretty much set that. Again, I have exactly 200 words. I'm holding up my phone as promised, 200 words exactly, and I shall not deviate from them. And I have to say, I'm at a bit of a disadvantage because of the title of my book, but you'll see why soon. Bianca Booker, author of Cork Dork, dives into a new subject, the inscrutable and misunderstood world of contemporary art in, get the picture, a mind-bending journey among the inspired artists and obsessive art friends who taught me how to see. Guided by 3 questions: what is art, how to love it, and does it matter? She interviews gallerists, curators, and tastemakers, desperate artists who need the right eyes on their art, learns to stretch canvas, meets millionaire collectors, the flippers who use their paintings like stocks, performance artist who straddles the line between art and pornography, who teaches her about taste, becomes a guard at the Guggenheim to spend mindless hours around art, and talks about the history of art and how art taste has shaped larger historical movements. She discovers her own obsession with art and her own taste, and the confidence to state what she likes and dislikes and why. She discovers a new way to look at the world around her. Perception, learning to notice, getting the details takes time. Oscar is a wry and clever tour guide who will tell you all the stories behind the pictures in a charming and engaging way for the uninitiated. So yeah, come on. Like, the title is so long. It took up so many words. But that's all I can say about it because I only have 200 words. So there.
That's the one I was going to read for that art episode. But then I ended up reading the other thing. Thanks, Corene.
Welcome.
All right. Our next book friend, our next special book friend is someone I feel like all authors would want them to be their readers. Because if you can gain Sadie's love, if you can get in her good books that she's decided you are worth her time, she will be the most loyal reader that you can ever have. And you have to be that if you are a series reader. And I don't know if many of us just kind of abandon series halfway through, but I don't think Sadie ever does that. Whether she buys them or not, that's another question. But she definitely will read all of them. And because of that, guess who is the most mentioned author on the show? I think we all know, Kelly Armstrong. And how many times, Sadie, do you think you have talked about Kelly Armstrong on the show? I'm sure you have mentioned it more than that, but how many books of Kelly Armstrong? 8. We have mentioned Kelly Armstrong 8 times. So like I said, if you can get Sadie to like you, then Sadie will be your biggest advocate. So Sadie, do you have the 9th Kelly Armstrong book today or something else?
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, everybody.
Okay. No, it is not a Kelly Armstrong book, but it is an author that is kind of well on their way to becoming in my heart, much like Kelly Armstrong. They only have one series so far though, so they're going to have to write a bit more for me to really decide. But yes, so similar to Emma, my 200 words have not started yet. Similar to Emma, this is not a book that I'm currently reading because the one I'm currently reading is one I'm going to talk about in a later episode, so I didn't want to spoil that. Okay, my 200 words start now. So the book that I'm currently reading is a high-stakes, action-packed YA fantasy, which blends a richly created fantasy world that is full of magic and murder with elements of real Indigenous struggles and horrors. I've mentioned this series on KIF before, and the first book was probably my most favorite book that I read last year, even though it wasn't published in 2023, and so I couldn't use it for my end-of-year top 5. The series first gained publicity through Book Talk, although this is not where I learned of it. This is A Vicious Game by Melissa Blair. The third volume in the Halfling saga once again follows King's Blade and assassin Kira. However, now, much to Kira's horror, with a new king. Still struggling to keep her ghosts and guilt for all that she's been forced to do at bay, Kira finds herself finally in a place where she belongs, with friends and allies and a lover who truly care about her. However, the new king is even more ruthless and cruel than the last, and Kira must learn how to drag herself out of her despair. Otherwise, she and everyone she cares about will lose everything.
So even though it's not a Kelly Armstrong, that's everything. All the qualities that you love in books is in that book, Sadie. So yeah. All right. So those are the voices that you expect to hear. They're still special, but you know that they're going to show up today. We have 3 others.
I feel really patronized at the moment. Oh, you're still special, but like not as special as these people. On the other hand, they are very special, and I'm excited to hear.
There you go. See? Anyways, our first very special visit, also an original member of the Keep It Fictional team. And I'm telling you, Corene's mom, it's not for a lack of trying that I, don't get her on the show, because I tell her every single time, go check the spreadsheet. Maybe there's something that you want to join us for. Oh, we only have 2 people, Liz. Can you come join us? I try so hard to get her on the show all the time. But Liz is busy, so she can't entertain us all the time. But of course, Liz, according to Corene, the queen of emotionally evocative books. But I do have to say, these days, looking at your Goodreads, I don't know if that still apply. And we were talking yesterday, I feel like, you always say that you're a mood reader, but maybe you're more like a face reader. I feel like maybe that's, because once you've got that face and that's all you read, and then you move on to a next phase. So, you can tell our readers later what phase you're in right now. But Liz is, of course, also the person who have dodged at least half of the existential questions by a good old "it depends" answer. So diplomatic on and off the air, and don't get into these squabbles among some of us. So yeah, Liz, welcome back. And I'm glad to announce to, again, Corene's mom, that Liz will be joining us a little bit more in the fall. So look forward to that. So Liz, what book are you reading right now? And how are you doing?
So happy to be back. Congratulations on 200 episodes of KIF. That's amazing. What a job well done, everybody. Of course, I had to get homework for one of my first episodes back. So I'm going to talk about a book that's in one of my current reading phases. And there will be an upcoming episode that focuses around books in this genre, I suppose you can call it. Without having started my blurb yet, it is The Marigold Mind Laundry. So a charming, cozy book in translation, which I will tell you more about right now. As a fiery sunset bathed the apartment in a magnificent light, a woman went to her kitchen to make a cup of tea. She had done this countless times before, in the same apartment, but not in this same life. She had willed herself to be reborn yet again, searching. Or maybe she was running, trying to keep something at bay. In The Marigold Mind Laundry by Young Yun Yoon, Translated from the Korean by Shanna Tan, Ji-eun is the proprietor of the titular shop, a place for her customers to find comfort from painful past memories. She's part counselor and part laundress, washing away the pain that manifests itself as stains on clothing, or at least smoothing out the creases with an iron. Part of the latest spate of cozy, heartwarming, and introspective Korean books to be translated into English, Marigold Mind Laundry gets the reader contemplating what stains on the heart we all carry, and how those blemishes have made us into the people that we are. We are reminded that both darkness and light coexist together, each bringing its opposite into sharper focus. The question is, can Ji-eun also come to terms with the stains upon her own heart?
Thank you, Liz. That's still a very Liz book, I think. All right. So, Liz, we're going to see you again soon. I'm very excited about that in the upcoming episodes. But the next two people we haven't seen for more than a year now. But they are back. They're back and to join us. So our next special guest, a true book lover and a book collector, always looking for treasure and then sharing those gems with us on the podcast. You're always making sure that books that really deserve the love and deserve the readership gets the promotion on the show. Champion of the underappreciated book. Mark, you have a super strong brand. I feel like we all kind of be like, this book is a Mark book. And like I was telling you how like you left some books at the library and even people who don't know you very well, they're like, oh yeah, that looks like a Mark book. They already know it's you. So very, very strong brand of books. But that doesn't mean that you only stay in your wheelhouse because I'm constantly amazed at the stuff that you know. And every time you make a reference to something, I'm like, how do you know all these things? So we'd love to hear what you've been up to, Mark. And of course, you're going to bring the very underappreciated James Patterson book to the show today.
All right. Thank you, Virginia. So no James Patterson today, unfortunately. Instead, I decided to get a little bit creative when I heard we were going to be given a 200-word sort of challenge. So I selected The Assignment or On the Observing of the Observers by Friedrich Dürrenmatt. And my 200 words starts now. After the wife of a renowned American psychologist disappears and is later found dead in the desert of an unnamed African country, the filmmaker F is hired to uncover the truth of her death. While the basic premise of Dürrenmatt's story is one of constant confusion, alienation, and despair, despite its basicness. In her investigation, F encounters the plots and machinations of police chiefs, Secret Service officers, and government agents of various stripes, whose differing views of events and reality leave the reader ever unsure of what is fact and what is manipulation. To make matters unsettling further, F is under observation. But by whom exactly? Our cast of government agents? Others seeking to crack the case? Or someone else entirely? Feelings of suspicion build as F observes them through her investigation and tracked herself. Every moment takes on a sinister tone as each conversation and event adds to the list of diverging threads of a data. Dürrenmatt breaks down the rules of dramatic tension instead of plunging the reader headfirst into a world of doubts about the truthfulness of any person. In this way, he shows the extent of technological surveillance, internal power struggles, and the manipulative effect they have on the truth.
I love, you just cheated and be like, I'm going to say all the long title now, and then that does not count as the 200 words. You did it, Liz did it,
Yeah.
See, Corene,
yeah,
the master. No, I know, that's what I'm saying. The master of like cheating did not do that.
It's a 200-word description, not introduction.
Sure, Mark. All right, well, last but not least, and I saved this very special spot for you because all of us are being paid to be here today. But there's one person who is not paid, but yet they are still here to join us. Fiona, welcome back. We're so excited to see your face. You can tell our listeners later where you are and how you've been. But Fiona, when I think about writing this blurb, I'm just like, there's so many things we associate with Fiona. There's Draculas, there's foraging, there's, I don't know why we stuck you with mushrooms now, Muppets, the clergy, nuns and clergy, and also, as you call them, books where nothing happens. So, there's just like so many things. And as I've said to you, ever since you left, it's hard because, editing this podcast, I don't have those like very, very great lines that you always and every episode that I could use as a teaser. So I miss that a lot. But you're also always very, like, I find that whenever we're talking about like more difficult subjects, whenever we're talking about something a little more serious, you're also very, always very elegant in the way you talk about it, and so genuine, so sincere. So I really, really admire that. So Fiona, welcome back. And tell our listeners how you've been and what book you're reading right now.
Thank you, Virginia. I'll try to get some good one-liners in that you can use. We'll see. No promises. And I have had a really great year of reading because what I am doing is I'm basically like catching up on my KIF backlog, all the things that you guys recommended that I didn't want to read because I wouldn't be able to use them on the show. I'm now going and reading. So that's been really gratifying. And a book I read recently that I really loved and wanted to share with you is Remote Control by Nnedi Okorafor. And my 200 words starts now. In a near future Ghana, a young girl finds a seed in an asteroid. This encounter costs her her family, home, and identity. This novella follows her journey as she becomes Sankofa, a figure of local legend and folklore. This book is at once gripping and meandering, grounded and fantastical. The vision of the future is recognizable while still being inventive. Okorafor's description of jelly tellies, malleable television sets, and all-seeing robocops that direct traffic are so fleshed out, I find I can picture Sankofa's world perfectly. The book straddles YA and adult genres. Sankofa, though still a child, is strong and capable. She's stubborn and likable, and I desperately wanted her to succeed in reuniting with the seed, despite its clearly negative influence over her. However, there's a lingering sense of doom, and we know that any happy ending for her is going to be relative. I highly recommend the audiobook. It's narrated by Ajoa Ando, Bridgerton's Lady Danbury, who brings incredible energy and impeccable characterization to the book. It is considered a prequel to Okorafor's Binti series, but it stood well on its own. However, I am now so excited to read the rest of the series.
All right, I just have to say, I think that's the book because I've been like trying to listen to snippets of this podcast to prepare for today. I think this is the book that maybe, at least the author, is a book you said that you just pick up without reading the back. And that shocked Corene, like as everything does. And I remember Corene was just like, could not deal when you said that you will pick up a book without knowing what the book is and would just go read it. So yeah, just want to bring that back, Corene.
It's the equivalent of just like showing up at the airport and getting on an airplane.
Doesn't that sound exciting?
No, because you could be going to like Wyoming. You don't know.
This is very indicative of our 199 previous episodes, I feel. Like this is classic KIF. Also, speaking about classic, we cannot forget Virginia. She is one of the OG Keep It Fictional book lovers. She's also our editor and coordinator extraordinaire and make sure that stuff gets done. We show up, we sound okay, gets rid of all the little blooper bits. Anyways, you don't need to know that. In addition to appearing in front of the camera and microphone, she makes the behind the scenes magic of Keep It Fictional happen. Her reading tastes are diverse. And even though she is probably one of the nicest people I know, don't be fooled about her, reading tastes, because if she doesn't like something, she will not like something. That being said, she's passionate about making sure the right books get into the hands of the right readers. She's a discerning reader who takes care with her podcast picks. I'm amazed by the multiple selections that she will have on any given week as to what she'll talk about. What is the best book that she can present for you this week? But no matter what your reading tastes are, even if you're far from being Virginia's reading twin, she has a compelling way of describing her books that will make you go, maybe I should read that space opera, or that psychologically banana pants fever dream, or that family drama that revolves around cannibalism. Maybe it sounds kind of good. So Virginia, what have you been reading lately?
So nice of you to say all that words. I don't think anything of that is true, but thank you, Liz, for being so nice. All right, my 200 words. Wanted, young historian, conscientious and neat. Perfect knowledge of colloquial French. This sounds like the job tailored for you. So you go to the address on the ad. You push open the door, but it's dark inside the house. A voice tells you to go upstairs and turn right. You follow the instructions, and you came to a room illuminated by candles. You see a fragile old woman sitting up in bed, stroking a rabbit. She said she's looking for someone to edit her late husband's memoir. The only condition is that the person has to live in the house for the duration of the job. You're about to say no, you rather live at home when her niece appears silently next to you. You turn and you gaze into her bright green eyes. Sorry, Fiona. You say, yes, I will take the job. This is Aura by Carlos Fuentes, translated by Lysander Cam. This short novella demands an immediate reread upon finishing. Told in second person, the menace in this quiet, dreamlike literary horror slowly builds up as you learn more about the old woman, her husband, and her niece. But when you realize what's happening, it's too late. And this is not the 200, but cat, everyone, for the cat people, even though there's not really a cat inside, maybe the best kind of cat book. Sorry. All right. Thank you, everyone, for sharing their books. I am so excited that you're all here. So we're going to travel down the Keep It Fictional memory lane for a little bit and see how much we remember and how much we have learned about our fellow book friends. And I'm going to ask my book friends to help me with this. Thinking back to the 9,607 minutes of Keep It Fictional, I am sure we all have our favorite moments. But in talking with Liz, we both agree that nothing will beat the time when Fiona said, when we were promoting Summer Reading Club, the board game that is inspired by Clue, and we talk about what we're going to be reading and which room in the house we're going to visit, Fiona said, quote, I'm going to start with the bedroom where my skills lie. They immediately add, and I'm talking about sleeping. Definitely about sleeping. But yes, another 10 minutes for us to settle down before we can continue our podcast. I don't know if anything can top that moment, at least according to Liz and I. And we got it on tape, Fiona. So it's been really fun to listen to the clips and the snippets. Like I said, I'm going to get my book friends to share some of them with you all today. And of course, no episode of Keep It Fictional can be without some good old existential questions. So we're going to also throw in some of those. Let's start with Mark. Mark is going to give us his existential question.
How much does a book cover influence your first impression of it when you've never heard of it before?
I'll get out the elephant in the room right now. So much. So much. As we know, I will go and I will pick up a book and I will read it based solely on the book cover.
A book cover will influence whether or not I pick up that book initially, but I am not as bold as Fiona. I do have to read the description before fully committing to reading it or not. But a book cover will determine whether or not I pick up the book to then read the description.
I mean, it wouldn't be Keep It Fictional unless I was vehemently disagreeing with someone. And so Fiona. Honestly, the book cover doesn't matter at all. Because usually when I'm picking up the book, it's for very particular reasons. Either it's been recommended by a fellow reader or Anton Her, or it's an author I like or a subject that I'm interested in, or I've heard a little bit about the plot. And so honestly, the book cover does not affect me in the slightest because I'm usually going after a book for a particular reason, or it's because it's an assignment for Keep It Fictional and I really don't have a choice in the matter because it's the only book about cowboy aliens.
You didn't say recommended by BTS. What's wrong with you today? You okay?
Obviously, I'm saving all of that for the end of the drinking game. That I chose Anton Her because he's top of my mind, and poor RM's in the military and can't give me book recommendations.
Well, and weirdly, I'm gonna agree with Corene. What is going on? Yeah, like I don't care about the book cover at all. I do appreciate the work that designers put in book covers, but like it doesn't matter. If I'm gonna read, I'm gonna read it. So book covers does not matter.
I think I'm kind of close to what Emma said. If I don't know anything about a book, it will be what gets me to pick it up a lot of times. But I think, yeah, sorry, Fiona. I think that I do have to actually read the back of it and find out a little bit more about the book to determine whether or not I will read it. But it definitely will draw me in. And I think I'm definitely attracted to certain kinds of book covers. And on the opposite side, they will also turn me off from reading a book. So if a book cover is particularly bad, in my opinion, then even if the story might be something I might be interested in, I don't know if I will pick it up. Don't know.
What about like give us an e-reader? Then you don't have to look at the book cover.
That's true. I think that it sets the tone of what the book could potentially be. And so I just think about, because I read a lot of paranormal romance, and some of those book covers are just truly terrible. And I think that it sets the tone for what, maybe not the author, but what the publisher wants to be highlighted in the book and what the book, kind of the tone of the book is going to be. And so I think that is what turns me off kind of more than anything, because it kind of gives the sense that the book is going to focus on certain things or kind of be written a certain way.
I feel like we talked about this in another episode once too, of like maybe the bad books covers one, where like a lying book cover is almost as bad as a bad book cover, because it's supposed to like give you the mood and everything. And then when they like put a cat on a book that doesn't have a cat, just messes with me.
Yeah, but cats are inherently terrifying.
Yeah, it's great. I'm just like, oh no, there's a cat in there. Oh no, there's not actually. There's mention of cats somewhere upstairs, but like you never see them. So that's a perfect cat cover. But anyway,
I like pretty things. I can be superficial. It'll draw me to a book. It's like pretty packaging. It's got a nice wrapper. They spent the time, put the resources into making it attractive, which I would hope would reflect what's inside, which I know is not always the case. Okay. Like I'm not delusional about this. That being said, I will read a book with an ugly cover if A, I have to. So like Corene, A, I have to, or B, I'm really compelled to read the book. Like the everything I've heard about it sort of supersedes any opinion I may have about the cover. But yeah, I like nice looking packaging.
Yeah, so I'd probably somewhere around Sadie and Emma on this one, because I find something that if it's distinctive or has something that you can tell is different from other books, or if it's a particular series or something like that, you can recognize it as something that you're interested in and things like that. So when it has a particular kind of hook to it, it definitely does influence me, especially if you're like on Libby and you're just like scrolling through stuff and you don't know what any of it is. It's like that cover can sort of get you to click on it.
all right. So tying to Mark's question, this is like our see how much you remember from the show questions. Corene, I'm going to direct this question to you first. So you can tell strong opinions about aesthetics, strong opinion about color palettes, strong opinions about covers. So we did talk about covers at one point, and I think it is on the good cover, bad cover episode where Liz brought a book to the show. And you were all discussing the cover, the difference between the UK cover and the North American cover, because often they have different ones. Corene's comment was that there were too many butts on the cover. And then Liz started to say, yeah, what's with all the crevices and curves? And then Fiona said the fact that her butt doesn't factor heavily into the story, that's pretty misleading. Just like you said earlier, just lying. Corene, do you remember what book that is? It's a Liz book. Give you a hint, it's a science fiction. And then, of course, we're going to see if Liz remember what book it is later.
Madam Butterfly?
The butts have nothing to do with the book.
Oh, I have no idea. But I am very proud of myself, so...
Liz, do you happen to remember what the book is?
I'm on my phone trying to figure it out. But I do remember it's Becky Chambers. Wasn't The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet? Was it that one?
To be taught, give fortunate.
Right. So I was trying to look up the cover to traumatize everybody, but we won't go that far.
People can look it up. People can look it up. All right.
You can look it up on your own. Yeah.
Yes, people can look it up on their own if they're interested in this cover. All right, great. Thank you. Too much. Okay. Don't have to do the hand gestures.
It's really like out there. Yeah, it's much very out there. Just round and in your face.
Okay. All right. Emma. So you said, I'm going to give this question to you because a couple of weeks ago, you said this is a cannibalism friendly podcast. So we're going to go there.
I think I said this is a cannibalism friendly episode because Corene and Sadie were not present.
Okay, fine.
It was just you and I.
That's why it's cannibalism friendly. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. All right. See, an ally. So there is a 2024 release that Corene talks about that she thinks might have a potential to be her favorite book. However, there are two things against it. One, the cover, because she does not want to be seen on the bus, on the SkyTrain with the cover because of the color, specifically, of the cover. And the other thing that may prevent this from being one of her favorite books is that if the book ends in cannibalism, I'm out, according to her. Do you remember what book it is? It is a Japanese book in translation. I'll give you that hint.
I remember who's saying something about if this ends in cannibalism, then I'm done. I remember getting into that discussion, but I don't think I remember what the book is. We talk about so many Japanese books and so many different Japanese authors that I'm just like, was it Mieko Kawakami? Was it Hiromi Kawakami? Was it a totally different Kawakami? I have no idea.
You've only been here for 27 episodes. You have to remember this.
My memory's not that good.
Corene, what is this book? And I would like to know whether you read it or not.
Was this on my to be read? Butter. I remembered what I said.
Yeah, I would have never gotten that.
Did you read it? Corene, did you read it?
Actually, I have planned myself a book reading getaway in November, and that is the book that I have purchased to read on it. But I believe it's coming out in paperback with a slightly different cover. So that might really help me out.
Like not as yellow?
Also, no cannibalism.
Not as yellow. Oh, really? Oh, but don't spoil it. It's like sometimes like the looming specter of cannibalism is like enough. I just don't want it to like actually rain cannibals.
But now you know. Now you know it's safe. According to this, it's safe.
Yeah, I didn't realize that Corene was so anti-yellow because I clearly enjoy yellow. So
it's too much. It's too in your face. And I think after, what was it, Earthlings? That was so damaging that I
Earthling is not yellow though.
It's still cannibalism.
Oh, okay, so are we talking about yellow or are we talking about cannibalism?
It is called butter. Butter is yellow.
You could make people butter.
Would you rather the cover was red then?
Like a smooth, like light, pale goldenrod.
All right, sure. Okay, Fiona with the slightly not yellow, but a little bit yellow background. I saw you looking at it when Corene was like, I don't like yellow. Fiona, what is your existential question for the group today?
Okay, so my existential question is about nonfiction reading. What is a subject that you just love to read nonfiction about?
Don't worry, I got this one. Art. Done.
Jeopardy? It's Jeopardy. Seems to be what I only read nonfiction about is the show Jeopardy.
Jeopardy and Gilmore Girls.
Jeopardy and Gilmore Girls. And music, honestly. I do one of my favorite nonfiction books, which I've never talked about. I mentioned on the show is This Is Your Brain on Music. So yes, Jeopardy, Gilmore Girls, and music.
Yeah, so the other non-fiction reader. I think I only read them when they are like a very, very narrow, very, very specific thing. Typography, I love it. I know there's actually a book coming out that is just on Comic Sans that I cannot wait to read. But I do actually have one out right now. I think I told some of you about it. It's The Notebook, like about thinking on paper, so it's an entire book about how people use notebooks and what happens to you when you write things down rather than like typing things. So yeah, so when it's something super specific, that's my weird
I really hope that somebody walks into the store, asks for the Notebook, and gets that book instead of the Nicholas Sparks book.
Oh, no. I would be very, very specific about which notebook I'm looking for. Not that one.
I have to say, Virginia, because we actually do have this in common in our nonfiction reading, is books about like productivity, which seems like a very weird thing for both of us to be into. But I know you read them, and because so do I. And we've had like the 4,000.
4,000 weeks? 4,000 weeks!
Yeah, I was like, how long is my life going to be? 4,000 weeks?
4,000 weeks. That's all we've got.
I don't read a lot of nonfiction. My nonfiction is kind of like very, very specific. Like I really liked a book that was just called Play with Your Cat, or I really like an anime art book, things like that. But I feel like the nonfiction I read the most often is probably poetry, which I know is an unpopular opinion in this group, but I'm kind of the resident poetry reader.
I love books about food. Books about food, where it comes from, food that has gone extinct. I love reading books about being in the kitchen, being a chef, what that's like. I love cookbooks. I love the pictures. I love making the recipes. Books like Butter, which is centered around food, that yellow food called Butter. Yeah, anything about food. I love it.
I guess I'd say one of the ones I've talked about a bit on here is how things have came to be the way they are. So like a historical kind of overview of things. I remember I mentioned one of the best of the year was like how the internet came to be the way it is now, how it developed specifically to be a social media dominated hellscape, basically. So those types of books I find quite interesting, and that's probably like the most common type of nonfiction that I read.
I'm with Liz on liking history of food a lot. I'll read anything about coffee, and I also really like some popular science, like specifically theoretical physics, but it has to be like in a way that I can understand because I don't have a lot of background knowledge. But if someone can make it understandable for me, that is ideal.
You're like an onion, Fiona. Every time I think that I've got that onion figured out, there's another layer of theoretical physics that I didn't see coming.
What we do know about Fiona is that Fiona sees business ideas everywhere. So, Sadie, you talk about a book once in one of your most anticipated reads. I'm going to give you the book. It's called Bad Witch Burning by Jessica Lewis. And that inspired Fiona to come up with a business idea. And we're talking about nonfiction. I think they decided that maybe they need to write a book about this business idea. Do you remember what it is? And this is one that I don't think exists yet. So we might need to figure out with Liz what the Dewey number would be for this later.
Never actually read the book, so I'm trying to think of what it would have been that may have prompted Fiona to want to.
Here's some rapid Googling here right now.
Yeah, I might be looking up the book to see what. I know it's about a witch. Okay. Some sort of necromancy. I'm going to say Fiona wants to write a book about necromancy.
Yes, but not just necromancy. Necromancy finances for dummies. So Liz, where would that be as our technical services coordinator, where would that be in our Dewey decimal system?
I'll have to get back to you on that one. I don't think there's a precedent for that one.
How's the book going, Fiona?
I think I'm going to have to revisit that episode. I mean, sounds like a winning idea. Clearly, I let it fall through the cracks.
Again, speaking of nonfiction, we also, I feel give out a lot of free advice to people, whether they want it or not. One of the ones that Corene keep harping on, do not accept invitations to spend a night at some remote mansion with anyone, acquaintances or not. So before we go into the actual question, I would like to ask everybody, who do you think here is the safest person? If you have to pick one of your book friends to go to this mansion, who do you think would be the safest? For me, for example, it wouldn't be Corene because she knows too much about poison. It wouldn't be Sadie because she reads a lot of assassins' book. And betrayal, she loves a good book when people get betrayed. So I'm probably going to pick either Liz or Mark. I think they're safer. Who would you pick?
This is actually pretty easy for me. I think it would be Fiona. And Yeah, it's not that I don't think that you're capable of murder. It's just that I think I would have had to do something really truly heinous to deserve it. And like you're so kind and so gentle that like I feel like if we were like wrestling in front of a giant window in front of a staircase, I feel like I could take you. I feel like your heart is just so good that even though you would be so angry, there would be a moment of hesitation and then I would just push you through the window. In a very kind way. But I really think it's just because like I would have had to do something really bad to warrant your murderous spirit.
On that note, I would not choose Corene. Yeah. I think I might also go with Liz. I feel like Liz gives like true neutral vibes that like, she could maybe do it, but she'd have to have that malicious intent, and I just can't see her like mustering the malicious intent.
Also really because Liz is so diplomatic that she can like diffuse any disagreement. So I feel like she'll be a good person to have.
I don't know. Maybe after listening to our upcoming KIF episode about star signs, where you'll learn more about some of us, you might second guess that.
So ominous.
Yeah, I don't know who I would pick to go with. I mean, like Sweet Fiona, but the onion. I have not seen all the layers of the onion, so I don't know if I want to risk that. Corene, Sadie. Again, I feel like Sadie's an actor. So yeah. Emma, I feel like you know too much about me, you and your star signs. Virginia, you read all those murdery books. Feel like maybe Mark, because we spent the least time together out of everybody here, and we would have like the least amount of beef, basically. Like we're clean slate. We'll start fresh. No past like grudges that may be underlying there. I feel like we get along well.
I was originally thinking Sadie because I thought she just has too much positivity, but now I think Liz has swayed me the other way.
Part of her plan.
Emma's like, I don't know any of you yet.
Me? Yeah, I was like maybe Mark, maybe Fiona, because you're the two that I don't know as well, but also like that's the wild card, is I don't know what to expect from either of you. And then I thought Sadie, because I feel very safe with Sadie. Sadie's got like motherly and comforting energy, and I feel like I can talk to you about anything. So I don't know. I might just say Virginia because no one else has said Virginia yet. And because I do feel very safe with Virginia. And I feel like if Virginia and I got in a fight, I could win. So, but I'm also a black belt. So that's the advantage that I have.
I was going to say Emma, but after learning that fact, I don't know if I'm going to anymore.
You didn't know I'm a black belt? Yeah, I did Taekwondo for like a decade. So I
was going to say either Emma or Fiona, but yeah, I don't. That's it. Same with Emma. I feel like this could be dangerous because you can get me to open up about things really easily, but that might be a trap. So I don't know if I can trust that. And yeah, Fiona, I might just have to go with Fiona. I might have to go with Fiona.
So again, what did Corene say? What's Corene's advice? Just don't go with anyone. That's what it is. But Sadie also has some really, really good advice for us on the show.
Back it up, Virginia. Who are you going on this island with?
I already said it. Mark or Liz. What is that supposed to mean? What is that face? I trust those two more, I think. Maybe.
Wow.
We don't like lies here, remember? Anyway, Sadie also has provided some very, very good advice for our listeners out there. So Fiona, we're going to see if you can remember this. When talking about one of Sadie's least favorite tropes, which you have to figure out what that is, she said, you should not give your whole life and all your years to this one person. Play the field a little bit. So Fiona, do you remember what is Sadie's least favorite trope, or one of Sadie's least favorite tropes?
Lovers through different like times in history, like reincarnated lovers. That's not tropey enough.
That's pretty tropey, but I think more tropey than the one that Sadie actually thinks of. How do you think about reincarnated lovers, Sadie?
I know the one you're talking about. It's close. I feel like it. Like covers the same idea in a little way. I probably dislike this other one more than Reincarnated Lovers. The chosen or like the soulmate destined for each other trope. And I find this funny coming from the person who's been in a long-term committed relationship for the last 15 years. But yes, I hate the soulmate trope. Hate it. Absolutely hate it. Make your own damn decisions.
And play the field. All right, Liz, what is your existential question for your book friends today?
Okay, so this one is for the audiobook readers or those who have ever been inclined to pick up an audiobook. Are there titles you've enjoyed in audio that you likely wouldn't have picked up or completed in print? And why?
Well, I don't really listen to very many audiobooks, but it tends to be things that I don't want to dedicate like sole attention to. So it's like if I'm doing something else, I just put the audiobook on in the background. And if I miss a little bit, I'm probably not going to miss much.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's the books that I'm kind of like, I may want to read, but I don't, it's okay. Like, or I have to read either for the podcast or like, it's like, I feel like it's a book that I should read. I will like choose an audio book while I'm doing something else. So yeah, so it'll be like the books that I don't really care about, then they go into audiobook.
I'm kind of the same way. And I want to preface this by saying that I do really enjoy a lot of YA, but often I listen to YA books because I can like space out a little bit, miss a little bit, and then come back. And the plot's not too complicated, but I can still follow along. Or just like really, really enormous books that I want to. So my example is Game of Thrones, where like I want to read the book, but I've seen the show, so I don't care about actually carrying around the copy of the book. So I'll put the audio on like while I clean. And then I can miss bits and pieces of it because I know the plot from the television show. So that's one where like I will listen to the audiobook, but I probably will never read the physical books.
But there's so much more in the books. So much more.
But the audiobooks are the books.
You're going to miss them.
And the narrators does a really, really good job.
The narrator is great. That is true.
I'm kind of on board with everybody else. Like, definitely, if it's a long book, I know I won't get through it reading it, so I will always listen to an audio. But I had one in particular. I recently read The Woman in Me, which is Britney Spears' memoir. I started out in the audiobook read by Michelle Williams. She's a fantastic narrator. And then my hold went back and I picked up the text version and it was just unreadable. So I went back to the audio book and it was like Michelle Williams was what made it digestible.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, similar to Emma and Fiona, long books definitely are books that intimidate you episode. My 40-something hour audiobook was a lot easier to take in than I know it seems strange, but to think about reading that, think about sitting down and read that, to audio, because I audiobook when I drive all the time. And so I think that it just helps it because I'm going to listen to it the whole way. And it helps if I can't get into a book, because I'm going to keep listening to it. Whereas if I'm reading a book and I can't get into it, I might read the same page 10 times. But if I'm listening to the audiobook, they're going to keep talking, whether I listen or not. And then it gets me through, right? It gets me past whatever was stopping me from getting into the book so that I can keep listening and keep engaging. I enjoy listening to memoirs and nonfiction as audiobooks. And I think maybe because they're not my go-to genre. And so I prefer to listen to them. And the memoirs are often narrated, not always, but by the author. And I always appreciate that.
Yeah, I love memoirs and like read by the author as well. But some of them are just like Fiona was saying about the Britney Spears book, like, sorry, no offense, but I mean, when you see it on the page, it doesn't really quite do it for you. But then when you listen to somebody who's great at being an audiobook reader, who's a trained actor, somebody who just has those skills, that talent, then it's like, oh, okay, it sounds like a conversation. It sounds like, oh, I'm telling you my life story, person to person, as opposed to this dense wall of text. There was a book that I had read previously, I talked about on the podcast, and it was the Patrick Stewart biography. And of course, I had to listen to it in audiobook. Like, there was just no question about it. But I did put a hold on the print version because I wanted to see the pictures, like what did he look like as a young man, right? Like throughout his childhood, that kind of thing. And then when I got the book and I flipped through, I was like, there was no way I was going to read it. Sorry, Sir Pat. But yeah, like there was just no way I could have gone through it without having his melodious voice in my ears.
Corene, I'm assuming you're opting out of this audiobook question.
I am politely recusing myself from this question. I think I've only listened to about 3 audiobooks in my entire life, 2 of which were on a very long road trip when I was driving from Vancouver to Lethbridge. Yeah, I don't have the attention span for it. But I think that, as you've all said, like a really good narrator can like elevate material so much. And there is something really special to be said when someone is reading their own story, or in the case that I was reading, I was told there would be cake, like their own essays, and they just kind of put a spin on it that you wouldn't necessarily have the same experience as when you're reading.
All right. Well, we love what we love, and we all have our preferred format. And as Emma infamously say in the episode where we have to try to read a book from a favorite genre or a favorite format from a book friend, the lesson that she said we learn is that we should all stay in our lane. So, we all have our things, right? Like, but sometimes occasionally we will get out of our lane. So Mark, this is a question for you. Even though you were not there for that episode, I think you will be able to figure this out. So recently our thing is that we were talking about the kind of books that we like. So 2 of us here like books that are from A to B to C, Sadie and Corene. And then the other people would be okay with books that are from A to 15 to S to Z back to Y or whatever. But occasionally, Miss Corene will read books that surprise us. On one of the episodes, she talks about a book. And so we reminded her that she read this book. And she was like, whatever. I'm going to go pass it on to my ally, Sadie. And Sadie immediately say, I'm not your ally on that toilet, whatever that you are talking about. And this is a book, apparently you walked by Corene's office and saw that she was reading. And you're like, you're reading that, huh? Okay. And apparently I also said something to her. I was like, tell me about what you think about the first story. So Mark, do you remember what book that might be? I think you could figure it out.
Was this the Kenji Miyazawa one? No.
Korean book in translation.
Oh, Korean. That's the Cursed Bunny.
Cursed Bunny, that's right.
Yeah.
Cursed Bunny.
Yeah.
So Corene occasionally will read weird stuff, even though she doesn't say she does. And she roll her eyes at all the other books. So toilet, whatever, is where Sadie draws the line on this. Oh, I should ask Fiona and Liz and Mark, which team are you on? Are you A to B to C, or are you A to 15 to S to Y?
A to 15 to S to Y, definitely.
I'm game for whatever, as long as the story's good.
Classic Liz with her diplomatic answer.
Mark?
Probably more good with whatever.
Look at us, we have comrades.
Well, listeners, we hope you have enjoyed our special 200th anniversary reunion episode so far. Please join us next week again for part 2, where we will share more Keep It Fictional memories, shocking revelations, and existential questions. How much do we really know our book friends? We will find out next week. Until then, happy reading.
Thank you for listening. If you like our show, please tell a fellow book lover about it. You can find a list of all the books we discussed in our show notes. Join us next week for another fun book chat. Until then, keep it fictional.